Hello, and welcome to The Kosh. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and The Kosh is a podcast that spotlights the people who've had an association with the Kosh or the surrounding Fox Cities area. Good morning, Kosh listeners. How are we doing today? Let me give my normal report that I like to give. It's kind of fabulously sunny out. Now, the trick is, I don't know. I haven't gone outside yet to know if it's really cold out. Like, why does Wisconsin have those? It lies to us weather-wise often. It just tells tales to us. Like, all of a sudden, it looks beautiful out the window, and then you go out there and you're like, whoa, what is that? That is ridiculous. It is cold. And, look, once again, I'm born and raised in Wisconsin, so I understand what I'm up against. But doesn't mean I ever got to like it. And I'm always going to say I'm tropical peoples. That's just how I live. So, okay. I am super excited about today. I'm excited because the conversation I think we're about to have is something that is so relevant right now in society, and something like it's so basic. I feel like it comes from one of those books that is like everything you need to learn, you learn in kindergarten kind of thing. But I do think this is going to be a fabulous, fabulous conversation that we're going to lead into here, and I'm excited. But to have that conversation, you know what we need, and you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say? I don't know how I keep getting these amazing, amazing guests. So, without further ado, this week's guests are Alex Hummel and Walter Scott, but we're going to call him Scotty. Hello, you two. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks.
Outstanding. Thanks for having us.
Hey, I'm super excited that you're here with us today. And I think we're going to jump right in. So, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so can you please share a little something about yourself and your connection to the Kosh and the Fox Cities region? And Scotty, let's lead off with you.
I guess I'd refer to myself as a lifer in Oshkosh. I was born and raised here. Actually, my family lived on Oak Street, and the house would now be underneath the Theater and Drama Center.
Bruh.
So that's where I started out. And my connection to UWO is kind of interesting. It took me about 9-10 years to get out because I was in the campus school. So my parents sent me to campus school, kindergarten through 9th grade. Old UWO Oshkosh fans would remember Earl Hutchinson, who was my 9th grade. Never let you out of our campus school, the high school, unless your English is correct. So I remember all that well. My father was in the grocery business in downtown Oshkosh, and had a number of corner grocery stores around town. So I always had a part-time job. Anytime I needed a few bucks, I could hop in behind the counter. And that worked out well as I went along in life, because I then learned the meat side a little bit. And when I got to college, I was able to get a part-time job at a meat market on Thursday nights and Saturdays. And so all of that was a good thing. As I say, I've spent all my life in Oshkosh with the exception of 9 years. My college years were in Appleton, where I met my wife, and then after graduation from there, I went to the Navy Officer Candidate School, and then spent 5 years active duty with the Navy, and then actually another 17 in the reserves.
Oh, well, so, you know what? Let me take a moment and say Happy Veterans Day, even though we're a day back.
Thank you. And as a friend of mine always said, when people say to you, where did you serve? He always said, in a place far away a long time ago. and that certainly fits for me. So when we came back to Oshkosh, my father had passed away and the grocery store had been closed, so I was looking a different direction. And a family mentor who had a financial advising firm encouraged me to visit with him, which I did, and he became my mentor, and I entered business with him, and 53 years later, I finally retired. So,
Whoa.
so that's kind of my Oshkosh connection story.
That's a lot of connections.
Yep.
I like that. What were some of the names of those grocery stores that your father owned?
Well, he operated under Walter Scott Meat Markets, and he always went by Walt. And he was primarily a meat guy. He'd been raised, he gets born in Michigan, but ended up working for Bueller Brothers up in Minnesota, and then they opened an Oshkosh store. And that's how he got to Oshkosh. And interestingly, when he opened his own store, he was literally next door to Bueller's. All those stores were underneath what is now the U.S. Bank building. There was a whole block of stores there.
Awesome. Yeah. When I do see those Oshkosh pictures, they do look a lot different. Oh, yeah. Like up and down Main Street. Like, those are really cool.
Yeah.
Truly, yeah.
All right. Alex.
Yeah.
Can you please share a little bit about yourself and what is your connection to the Kosh?
Well, I grew up in the west side of the state in a little town right outside of Eau Claire, kind of in dairy farming central, a little town called Fall Creek.
Bruh.
And population 1128, if I remember the population sign back then. Mom and dad, both school teachers. And so I grew up there, had my parents as teachers a couple times, and, small town life. And
ooh, how is that?
It's yeah, good and bad, like all things, Timber. There's pluses and there's minuses, but you do feel connected in a small town. I will say that, and that comes with bad stuff too, I guess. But my graduating class in high school was 53 students, and we pretty much knew all each other. And I'm proud actually. I was talking to a friend about this last weekend, coming up on our 30th high school reunion. I'm glad that for the most part, even in that small environment, we all kind of got along and knew the boundaries about, supporting one another, caring about one another, but also staying out of one another's business when we needed to. So I graduated high school, went to college at UW-Platteville, and for a long time I've been thinking about becoming an engineer, but because that's kind of their forte down there. And then I took high school math and crash course in reality. Bruh. That side of my brain is not my thing, and is not as strong as maybe other sides, plural. And so I decided to shift into broadcasting and journalism, and that's what I graduated with from Platteville. I was a broadcasting technology management with an emphasis in production performance and a minor in journalism.
Oh, that sounds fantastic, actually.
So when I graduated, I went into newspapers and got a job in Marshfield for a short time. And then because the Marshfield newspaper was owned by the Oshkosh Company newspaper, getting to your question, I made a transition and got a job here at Oshkosh, at the Oshkosh Northwestern, and worked there for a decade, both as a public affairs reporter and editorial page editor. And boy, that's what an amazing experience, and learned so much about the community and the people, and still have a lot of connections and bonds through that experience. After that, I had to spend a couple of years, made a shift in my career and worked at Christine Ann Domestic Abuse Services for 2 years as a community education outreach coordinator. So that was a lot of school education and company and organizational education, and then helping them command things like their communications through social media and public relations, that sort of stuff. And then after that, opportunity opened up at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh to serve as a news director and public outreach coordinator, and got hired for that position. And that's what began my career for the last, 12 years, either at UWO or for a couple of years down at UW System, now the Universities of Wisconsin in Madison. But came back to Oshkosh, felt connected. I'm blessed to have a beautiful, awesome wife who owns a company here in town, and her company's thriving. And so we have got deep roots here now in Oshkosh.
Well, we're just going to go on and give some shout outs on that. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the executive director over at the Christy Ann Center, because she recently had an episode. So awesome. She is an alum, or as we call them, Kosh alums.
Yeah.
And your wife is a Kosh alum. She's got a fabulous episode also
True.
On there. So,
yeah,
this is fabulous. The connections run deep on the Kosh.
That's true. That's very true.
Hey, we appreciate it. Thank y'all both for making time for today. You ready to jump into the first segment?
Let's go.
Let's go.
We're ready.
All right. The first segment is called What in the World is Going On With? And that's where you start with the phrase, what in the world? And then you tell us what's on your mind. So, what's on your mind?
Well, I would say the number one thing is the lack of civility that we're seeing. And I don't mean necessarily Oshkosh. I think Oshkosh is a relatively civil community. We can all improve. But the lack I see is more on people's willingness to be kind to other people, to open their minds to different opinions without flaring up, certainly politically. But I'm not just thinking political. I'm thinking that's just how we generally treat each other. In Oshkosh, I think that's quite well. But that doesn't mean we can't improve. People often ask me, do you think the program has been successful? And my answer is not that we can measure numbers, but my answer is if it's changed how you think and how you act, yes, then I would say we're being successful.
Yeah. I agree. I'm with Scotty on this one. We're both involved, of course, and he's more deeply involved as one of the co-founders. I say co-founder of the Oshkosh Civility Project. It's a challenge right now, and not just here, around our country, maybe even around the globe, where it's too easy for people to sort themselves out and into camps, into groups, and based on what they think or how they identify, and so that's not healthy for humans. That's not healthy for our world. So yeah, I think what's going on with that? Why are people doing that? And what can we do? What can we do individually to choose different and act different? Because that truly gets the snowball rolling, I believe. And you model the way for the people around you, in your home, in your community, in your groups. I think it makes a big difference.
I would say, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly, but I don't know. I feel like the answer to me is power. People somewhere in the equation of things, people figured out that if we make people choose sides and look at people in some type of way where they aren't the same, or they're the enemy or an adversary, I can build on that emotion and gain power from it. And that's bad. Because we all used to, even if we had difference, I felt like there was at least a time where we felt like we're on the same team. Well, now it looks like the people who wield power make sure that we create separate teams. And that's what I see. I see that as the challenge of civility. And then as Oshkosh, as someone who's not born and raised Oshkosh, who moved to Oshkosh, and then as a person of color who moves around Oshkosh, but has moved around Oshkosh for 30 years, I will say, do I think Oshkosh has become more civil? Absolutely. I do think we're doing better. But because of the way things are right now, I do feel like we might have got to a point and we might be trying to take some steps backwards. But I'm also thinking a part of our community also realizes that there's the change that has happened in our community. There is no going backwards. The change is only going to move forward. And therefore, we need to embrace. But like most things in Oshkosh, that's slow. That is very slow. But it is promising here. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what I do believe. It is very promising.
There's an old saying that labels disable. And I think whether we think, are you black, are you white, are you Republican, are you Democrat, labels are wrong. Because I know at least, and I've had the advantage of a long life, as evidenced by the cane that helps me around now. But you kind of learn that the best place is usually somewhere in the middle, that there's no one group that has all the right answers. When you're young, you think your group has all the answers. And I think as you go along in life, you find out there's other viewpoints that can help you grow, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
I do too. Yeah, yeah. I think you know the some of the principles that we we promote through the Civility Project I do think about them very intentionally every day. Here we are talking, but we're also listening, and that's one I think that, boy, is it a big one. Listen more, actively listen. That not only educates you, but it shows to the person on the other side of the conversation that they matter, and they have something that you need to hear and think about, and maybe even adopt in your way of being. So, I think a lot of these things that are the foundation of this Civility Project here in town are really, they require everybody to think about them individually. What can I do? Can I? Should I? Will I? Challenge yourself, because I think it's a healthy way forward for us as not only people, but as a community.
Okay. So let's go down this path for a little while, because, I think this is a great conversation. So the Civility Project, when did it come about? Why did it come about? And how long has it been around? And I'm asking so many questions, but I don't think I'm asking anything that you're not ready to answer. And what does that look like now?
Well, I think I can answer the first part, and I think Alex could handle the second part well. Back at about 2009, 2010, which was the beginning of this Civility Project, I was concerned about, in those days, it was still the day when the newspaper appeared on your front porch every morning, and you read the letters to the editor. And the letters to the editor were getting a little nasty. And the way people were handling things was a little testy. And the example I can think of quickly was the area out near the quarry in Oshkosh around the airport. We're having a deer problem. So the city was trying to figure out how to clear the deer, and they kind of quietly hired some hunters to come up from Milwaukee to help clear the deer. Well, when that word got out, then those that didn't agree went by the night honking their car horns to scare the hunters and scare the deer and so forth. And the whole thing just became way out of hand. And the letters to the editor of the Northwestern, Stu Rickman at that time, who was involved in the Northwestern, and as he finally had to hire a firm to edit the edits so that be careful of what was being said in the newspaper. And that got me interested in the civility side of it. And I was mentioning it to my daughter-in-law, who lives in a little town of Truckee, California, where she and our oldest son live. And she said, well, we had a problem in our community to the extent where the school board and the community could hardly even talk to each other anymore. And she said, the Community Foundation started a project called the Civility Project. So I had her tell me more. And the next time I was in Truckee, I went over to the Community Foundation and I met the lady who was in charge of that project. Her last name was Bell. And she had a great personality, and we hit it off right away. And I said, where did you get a hold of this project? She said, well, it actually came from Duluth. So that's where it started. And it was based on a book written by a professor by the name of Dr. Forney, so from Hopkins. And so anyway, I thought, well, this all makes good sense. So I came back to town. I thought, okay, who would I look to in town to help organize this? Who do you need? Well, I need the Community Foundation, the newspaper, and the university. With those three, I think we had enough influence. So, and I had good, as you would just use the word connections, I had good connections with all three. So anyway, made those connections. Every one of them was very positive on it, to the extent that the university, but Chancellor Wells said, I will assign Tom Grogan, who works closely with me, to do whatever help you need and whatever support. And the Community Foundation said, well, we'll give you financial support if you need some. And so we decided to have a community breakfast, and we would invite the lady from Truckee to come in as our speaker, because she had a great personality. I knew that would go over well. And we organized a community breakfast inviting all those from law enforcement, from the elected boards and councils and county boards, city council, and so forth, all of the leaders of the area to come in and hear her story of what we could do with a civility project. And that was really the grounds that got it all. And that took about a year and a half to get all that done. But that was the start of it, and I give a lot of credit to Tom Grogan for helping organize all of that. And so that was the beginnings.
Yeah. I think you got to remember too. So that was the local level, which is really the impetus for this. Remember too, on a national level, what's happening in our country at that time, 2008, 9.
Yeah,
we'd just gone through the Great Recession, major, pretty historic shift in the economy, and a lot of people hurting.
Yes,
talk radio is volumes turned up all the way on talk radio at that time. Social media is starting to really infiltrate our life, and people are adopting Facebook, and all of a sudden Twitter comes along, and so a lot of people suddenly have these tools of amplification, and noise is getting louder. The sea of voices is growing. So I think, on a national level, and which of course also is a local level, when you're talking about some of these tools like social media, the temperature's turning up. And things are getting more heated. People are hurting. It was kind of the right time for the Civility Project, I think, to emerge in our community. And, of course, as Scotty had mentioned, it already had popped up in California and Duluth and probably a few other places, too, that we're not even aware of. But that, to me, was it's interesting when you look back now, to that time, in which, boy, history is an amazing lens on things. Of course, something like this is going to emerge because of all those pressures and dynamics. And
well, the world shifted. Yeah, new tools. The world shifted, and nothing scarier than shaky money. If you really want to get people insecure, and I think insecurity promotes uncivility. That 2008. That scared a lot of folks.
Yeah, a lot of change in our country. You're right, Timber. People were afraid, and whenever people are afraid, behavior changes.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. The world was scared. The economy was crazy. We got a black president. The world wasn't ready for all of that. That's just the truth, though. So
it was an interesting time to be a financial advisor.
Oh, I bet. I bet you had that. Certainly had that experience.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it is just to take a pause, and as our former quarterback said, relax.
Kosh listener, I just want to paint the picture as Scotty says this in his plaid Green Bay shirt, and very proud of it. He throws the Aaron quote out there. I love it. So how does the Civility Project engage now? How does one become part of it? Who's part of it? Where does it show up? Now, the thing is I remember these posters. When I worked at UW Oshkosh, these posters were everywhere. Mm-hmm. They were absolutely everywhere. And I remember somebody came and spoke a little bit to me about it. Then I'm just wondering where are we at now, and who's part of that conversation? Because I do think this is something that's so needed. I can't say enough that I think people from our marginalized communities like this would be fantastic. How do you get involved? Who's involved now? And anything else you want to share?
Well, I think Oshkosh Civility Project .com or .org.
.org. Yeah.
.org is the preferred. Will get you all kinds of information. We have about 4 people who are new to our group of about 13 of us who are on the committee. We're not an official 501c3. We operate through the Community Foundation for that purpose. So someone which wants to write a check to help support us, and that's always appreciated, that goes through the Community Foundation, and we're an arm of them. So how do you get involved? Well, I can think of 2 people who in the last year wrote us because they had observed what was going on. They'd been to our booth at the farmer's market, or they had seen a poster, and they were interested. And another from the university, I think Elizabeth Hartman, she was interested in having one of our group come and speak to one of her classes. And she immediately said, hey, I want to get involved too. So that's the same sort of thing. I had a connection from a lady by the name of Carissa from Rawhide. Again, looking for information on how we could be of support to Rawhide. But she immediately said, hey, I want to join the group too. And that's kind of really, it isn't like we go out recruiting. In the beginning, with Tom Grogan and all his connections, anybody that even smiled got on the committee. And all of a sudden, we were a committee basically of UWO people with one or two community. Well, then about 2 or 3 years ago, I looked at that list of about the same number, 13 or so. There were no university people. It was all community. So I saw Chancellor Andy Levitt, and I said, I need some help. We need somebody from the university. And that's immediately when Alex volunteered, of course. And it couldn't have been perfect. If I were trying to pick someone, I couldn't have done a better job. So that worked out perfectly. And so now we're a good mix of community, university, and a good mix within the community. We have some 501c3 people. We have some business leaders. We have we're really a good mixture and background. So we hear a lot of voices.
Yeah. I would say if somebody's out there listening and they're wondering, this is appealing. I'm curious. What do I do? How do I get connected? How can I bring this back to my organization? Go to our website, OshkoshCivilityProject.org. We've got email contact information there. Let us know if we can come in and maybe even, speak to your leadership group or your organization, or give you posters. Scotty's got these magical little cards that are so great, that they may sound a little old school, but actually they're beautiful little reminders that are always at your fingertips to remind somebody about the ideas and the principles and the ways that you can help further this movement, I guess, if you want to call it that. And it does make a difference. It really does make a difference. You said something, Scotty, earlier that struck me, which is, this is an organization and a project that is really not about metrics. It's about moving people and in individual ways, and that's hard to measure. So, how do you know you're successful? One at a time. One at a time. When you see people adopt this, and goodness, if we get a chance to knock on somebody's door or come into an organization and talk a little bit about the principles and the project, even better. So that's kind of how I think you can connect immediately and introduce it to others.
Well, Timber mentioned earlier that it's kind of like you learned all you really need to know when you were in grade school or kindergarten or whatever. And it's a lot of times I look at our principles of, listen, be inclusive, don't gossip, show respect, be agreeable. And as somebody said to us, that's just all the stuff your mother taught you. And it's really true. It's pretty basic, but it's easy to forget.
It's easy to get out of your character sometimes when tested. So I couldn't agree more. Okay. This is awesome. Well, Kosh listeners, if there's any interest, I think we shared. I will make sure that we put notes in the podcast notes, links to where the Oshkosh Civility Project is, and how to connect with it if it's something that interests you. I definitely think there's a place for it, and the one thing I just would want to hope is like that this conversation is really expansive and inclusive for all of who Oshkosh is becoming. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, we jumped in on that one. What in the world is going on with people's hatred of candy corn? What? I'm so serious. Why do people hate candy corn? Like, I was seriously, what do they got against it? What did candy corn do to them? Now, I know it's not Reese Cups. or Snicker bars or any of these other yummy candies that we love. But it is candy corn. It harms no one. It is sugar, and it is happy, and it's holiday-ish, right? It stands for holiday.
It's a good time.
It's a good time. But I hear people all the time bash candy corn. Why? What is, Scotty, how do you feel about candy corn?
Well, I think it's very colorful, particularly at this time of year. A glass of candy corn, it looks great.
Like
along with all
decor.
the fall colors.
Well, I do like the fact that they have made it more colorful, and it can switch seasons. So depending on what season it is, if it's Easter, they've got Easter colored candy corn, Christmas colored, Halloween. I mean, it does all the things.
True, yeah. I'm walking through right now, Timber, the Civility project principles, and I am listening to you. I am hearing you on candy corn. I'm going to be inclusive, and I'm going to say candy corn is got. And let's keep it at the table. Let's keep candy corn at the table. It may not be my jam, but I know that a lot of people love it, and I respect that. So I'm showing respect. I'm not going to gossip about this. I'm not going to take it negative. I'm going to support candy corn all the way. I am going to agree with you that it gets a bad rap and shouldn't. So what's the deal? So I'm sorry for that. Quick apology. And, for candy corn, I'll take responsibility. I'll give it another try.
There you go. Look,
here's what we could be inclusive by covering it with chocolate.
Bruh. That is so good. Look,
I've seen recipes where people are using it in immensely creative ways, where it's incorporated into, I don't know, even like I think somebody did bratwurst or something, maybe.
Yeah, that might be that's too far. That's too they're doing too much.
I think it ranks right up there with jelly beans.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You don't get jelly bean hate. Maybe black jelly bean hate, but you don't get jelly bean hate. Like the only thing I think that is in the same category in candy is Peeps.
Yes.
Like Peeps get hate.
Yeah.
People have true feelings about Peeps and candy corn.
Right.
And my thing is this, look, I bring this up because I am not a candy corn connoisseur. That is not who I am. I do like them with peanuts, though. If you give me some candy corn,
okay,
with some, it's the sweet and salty.
I get it.
It's the sweet and salty, right? And it's that night. It's like candy Chex Mix. I love it, and you just grab a handful of that, and it makes you happy. But nonetheless, I was listening to the radio the other day, and these two DJs were just bashing candy corn, and I'm just like, I didn't understand it because I feel like we've all grown up with it. Right? And yeah, maybe we didn't love it, but I don't know anybody that when the bowl is on the table won't stick their hand in and grab a couple of those.
Good point.
I'm just saying. So
I think you won that one right there.
All right. That is my what in the world is going on with.
Love it.
All right. We are jumping to the next segment, and the next segment is called 21 Questions. This is a new segment that we have started here on the Kosh. And this is just a segment where we're not asking 21 questions, but we're going to ask some pretty powerful questions to let us, in an attempt for us to maybe get to know our guests a little better, but also to maybe gain some wisdom and gain some different points of view about life. All right. So, you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. All right, Scotty, we are going to start with you. And the first question is, what are you grateful for?
Well, I'm most grateful really for my faith, for my Lord and the Savior, Jesus Christ, for my family, of course. And I'm thankful for our community of Oshkosh. And I kind of put those three things in that same order as to what I'm thankful for. Because that's what's made up my life and allowed me to be able to be involved in the things that I enjoy being involved in.
Yeah, beautiful. I guess I'm my wife, who is amazing, and my family. Don't have a very big family anymore, but makes you hug the ones you got even tighter. So I think of that. I'll add to the mix public higher education, which is my field of work and service, and I believe it is important to our community and to our democracy. I'll two other quick ones, and then I'll shut up. The age of space discovery we live in. I am so grateful to live in a time when we can shoot telescopes into space, and they're so sophisticated and so amazing in what they're doing and breaking boundaries, looking back literally in time, and seeing billions and billions of years ago what our universe was like. That sense of awe and wonder is just priceless to me. So I'm grateful for that. And then finally, jazz music. I'm a huge jazz music fan, and I'm glad it's still with us. I'm glad it's still here. It's taking on new forms and directions, but what a great art form.
What motivates you?
I'd say primarily the opportunity for interaction with others. From an age standpoint and health, I can't get around to as many places as I used to get around to. The morning breakfasts are definitely limited. Along came the COVID times, which really taught us that there are other ways to communicate. I'm not saying better ways, but other ways. And I've spent a lot of time during COVID on the Zoom process, and I have since continued a lot of those. And I do some Bible studies by Zoom. I'm on a couple of committees that I wouldn't be able to meet with otherwise if it weren't for Zoom. And so that has helped. That doesn't replace interaction with people on a personal basis, which is still number one as far as I'm concerned. But it does add something, adds another opportunity. So I think the interaction with others, and that helps grow the foundations you have. If your foundation's family, as you indicated, I'm an only child. So I always envied some friends in the next beach down who they had 5 children. That was the Ganther family. And I thought, wow, that would be awesome to have that kind of a family. And so we've been blessed to have 4 kids, and we have 10, 11, 12 grandkids, depending on how you count and who you're counting. And we just had a birthday party yesterday for the first great-grandchild. So wow. Family is very important, and it gets more complicated as you all get older and trying to keep family together, because when kids get to the college age and their first business age, their ability to travel and join reunions and all that is not as easy. And so it becomes more complicated, but that's okay. You got to keep after it.
I'm motivated by awe and wonder. I said it in the last answer, but whenever you get that feeling of amazement, that just is like recharges my batteries in a moment. I'll add creativity and humor too. When somebody brings something forward that's an original idea or presents it in a way, through film or through art, music, dance, theater, whatever, I'm just blown away. I'm like, that can shift everything. When you see great art and creativity and humor too, when we laugh, there's, other than food, I think laughter is maybe one of the greatest connectors for human beings. And so when we laugh together, it's just solid gold.
Facts. Couldn't agree with that more. What grounds you?
Well, what grounds me again would be my faith in my family. I mean, I think you, having started out in the military, you certainly are learn in a hurry that there are rules you have to follow and regulations and and there's a format that you've got to fit into to get along. And I think, for me, the military service was a great time of learning. And it's one of the reasons I've been very supportive of Boy Scouts over the years, because I think they teach some rules along in early life about leadership. And the more you study leadership, you learn how important it is to have some type of a grounding, or whether it be your faith or your family or both. You need in a sense, a Bible to look to. And as I mentioned before, our Civility project, that's Dr. Forney's book. And it was interesting back in that era, Chancellor Wells said, we have a speaker come to campus every 3-4 months, and we take care of that. Why don't we invite Dr. Forney? And then I'll loan him to you for a couple of days, and you can take him around the community and use him. So that's what we did. And one of the more interesting evenings we had, we invited all of the coaches from the high school and the university to come, and the parents, and we talked about what about civility in sports from a coaching standpoint and from a fan standpoint. And the public library jumped right in and said, fine, we'll host the program at our place. And so that we had a wonderful interactive evening of that kind of conversation. So a lot of those things come along that are unplanned in the Civility Project, and they just happened. We just had a meeting last week and reviewed what's happened this year. Probably 3/4 of the things were not on the agenda. The opportunities came forward. A local business, or in one case, a government agency called and said, hey, we could use your help. Would you come in? And I can remember the Christine Ann Center calling us years ago and saying, I think our staff could have a little discussion on civility. Why don't you come on over? And we did that, and that immediately created another volunteer. So that's kind of what's helped us grow.
Yeah, it's like a good a good contagiousness, a good contagion, civility. What grounds me, I guess I would say, I'm just blown away by like science and the age of discovery that we're in. We're not sailing across oceans and supposedly discovering things anymore, but we like to think about discovery, but we're discovering how to cure disease, prevent disease. We're discovering how big this universe is. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and that feeling of awe. And then, how does that intersect with our faith and our understanding of our place in this crazy world? And I just, that to me reminds me that we are pretty tiny. We're a pretty tiny thing. We're pretty precious. And some might say, we're kind of insignificant when you look at the grand scheme of things. But then I think you can also flip that instantly and say, yeah, but we're also incredibly significant. We may be a very rare thing, a very rare occurrence in, if not this little galaxy, but the entire vastness of the universe. So better take care of ourselves, better take care of what we've got and where we live. And so that reminds me, whenever things feel like the temperature's rising and the intensity of controversy is swarming and some heavy stuff's happening, pause, look around, remember that we're part of something immense, but an important part of something immense.
What does success look like?
I think you put it well earlier in talking about connecting the dots. Success to me is when I find I've been around long enough and know enough people in the community that if I can connect some dots, and one person comes very much to mind, and that's Franki Mascato, who you may or may not have heard of, but Franki's the Be Kind girl.
Yes, correct.
And so Franki, she's 21 now. When she was 16, she contacted our civility group and said, hey, I think we're kind of doing a bunch of the same thing. Can I be of help? Well, first of all, for a 16-year-old to reach out, that's a little unusual. And so I followed up on that. And since then, Franki and her parents and I have become very close friends. And I don't think there's more than a few days go by that I don't interact with one of them on email. And it's been fun connecting the dots because she's been very helpful to a couple of the organizations volunteer organizations I'm involved in, but we've also been able to be helpful to her too, in introducing her to people that have helped her along the way. And it's been connecting the dots. So I'd say that's what really gives me an encouragement, and particularly when you can see it in young people, and you have an opportunity to have some positive influence on young people, because there's so many social media influences that are difficult for them, and if you can find a positive way, that's rewarding.
Yeah. I mean, on the Oshkosh level, I think what success looks like to me is something that I used to write about at the newspaper, and I think we're now at a place where we have seen and we'll continue to see change in our community, and that's our Riverfront Reclamation. For decades and decades, we had industry along our river, and and the river maybe wasn't as vibrant a place as it is now. And I do think we should all pat ourselves on the back as collective investors and advocates and neighbors in helping bring it back. And so we got a long way to go yet, but I see it happening, and that's something to be proud of. I think that's happening in a lot of the communities throughout the Fox Valley, where we're blessed with all this water and these rivers and lakes, and I think it is making a difference. So that's some progress. And then my last thought is, success to me is all winners, no losers. I think a lot of things in our society and culture are based on somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose, and then it's kind of a shoulder shrug. And I don't like that. I think, what real success is when you feel like everybody has won. And that's very hard to achieve, very elusive, because everybody's always in this scoreboard mentality. How's the end of the game? Who's got the most points? But if you can find a way for everybody to truly feel like a winner, that can catapult a community, an organization, what have you, to incredible heights.
I think for a community, what it feels like to win is when you feel like you belong in there. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a better winning feeling for the community. All right. What irritates you?
Well, certainly from a civility standpoint, when I see lack of civility, and I think with the political polarization that we see today, I didn't see it in that same way 20, 30 years ago, and I certainly do now, and that is irritating, because you couldn't run a business or an educational institution without working together, and I know in the educational institution there's a lot of politics go on there, and when you're working together it works well. When you're not, it doesn't work so well, and we were talking a moment about opportunities. One of the good things is that when things aren't going well, or you have some challenges like the university's had recently with the layoffs, it gives you a whole opportunity to rethink things, and generally you will come out much stronger and much better from it. So bad things happening are not always bad. I think they bring about, another good example would have been Oshkosh Corporation potentially leaving town for their headquarters, but instead of that, we redid the golf course, and now we have all this great business expansion going on Oshkosh Avenue. That wouldn't have happened had those decisions not been made. So,
and on that score too, I was actually, my running group was running through the trail along the water by the Oshkosh Corporation, and if you get in that fabric of that area of the city and enjoy that space, you look around and there's more trails being built. And actually, I do think, personally, I think it's going to enhance a lot of public access to some of that green space. Yep. There's some very beautiful ponds that are kind of, they're retention ponds, but they're starting to evolve into something a little bit more lovely now too. People can access those. So, maybe there were some raw feelings when that project and that was going on. There was a great community conversation about shouldn't we, what are the principles involved here? Here we are, and I think we do still have two good things. We've got a large organization that employs a lot of people in our community, and we've also got this beautiful green space that is continuing to take shape, and we're finding ways to make it more accessible to the public too.
It was a good example of compromise between two. Either we do or we don't.
Yeah. Maybe that's one of my pet peeves, Timber, is I don't like either or thinking. It's got to be either this or that, one or the other. It's like, I don't know about that. Things are more complicated than that. And there's ways to look at something and actively work together to achieve a both and instead of the either or. I also don't like volume, just noise for the sake of noise. That really bugs me. There's got to be something there. You got to have what about your ideas? What about your values? What are you trying to express? What are you bringing new to the table? Turning up the volume, creating all kinds of new ways for people to sound off. Access is great when you want to share voices, but what do you got? What are you bringing to the table? Is it real? Is it factual? Is it inspiring? Is it moving? Emotion, to me, is the new special effect. You can do anything in the movies. You can create all kinds of stuff. But can you really touch somebody in a new way emotionally? So if you can't do that, it's just kind of noise, in my opinion.
What scares you?
I'm sorry, would you catch that again, please?
What scares you?
What scares me? Well, kind of what we've just talked about. When I see people that don't take time to listen to each other and that are so set in their own opinion. And I have to admit, during times of my life, I was certainly that way. So maybe a little bit of that comes with age also, and I think it does. But in terms of being more open to other opinions. But that's, the social media thing, the artificial intelligence that could be used so easily for wrong as well as for good, those things are scary. And they're happening so quickly that it's difficult to get quick control. It's funny, we used to think in business that, well, I'll watch everything that goes on the West Coast because eventually it'll get here and we'll sort out the good part of it and just use that. Well, you don't have time for that anymore. It gets here much more quickly.
Well, it all happens at the same time now. Yeah. It's just, here it goes, boom. The world has become very small.
I guess what scares me is when people use fear as a weapon to control or to paralyze people. When I mentioned earlier, I had the privilege of serving 2 years at Christine Ann Domestic Abuse Services, and you learn a lot about power and control when you are helping serve survivors of domestic violence, women and children and others. And those dynamics, using fear as a weapon, is something that you start to recognize more globally when you've been in kind of that, in the environment where you're helping support people who are trying to overcome some pretty remarkable power dynamics. And that scares me when people start using fear to divide us, to keep us in the dark, and to motivate us to maybe do things that we wouldn't normally do.
What recharges your soul?
When I think what recharges my soul when I see something or a leader really remembering why they're in a leadership role, which is really to be a servant, and using their authority instead of their power. And a good example, I can think of a couple of examples, but one is an author who wrote a book about the second life, or kind of called Halftime. And the thought was, much like an athletic event, you come to halftime, and how are you going to play the second half? And their point was, for leaders who get near retirement age, they've been successful in their business, the leadership role, what are they going to do with the second half? And we had a wonderful speaker at Excellence in Leadership a couple of years ago by the name of Alan Lux. And Alan was brought up through Oshkosh Corporation and companies and was very successful, reached retirement age. And he reached out and decided, I want to go back to my roots and work for a 501c3. And Alan became CEO of Rawhide and is CEO today. And he gave a wonderful presentation to us on how important mentors are in your life. And he went through and listed each of those people who had served a mentorship role to him over the years. That was very, very impressive. So when I see leaders who remember that they are servants and to serve the people who put them there, not just to show off how much power they have, that refreshes me.
Theater, music, arts, creativity, that really brings me back, especially when I can enjoy them with my wife. Just originality, There's so much stuff, so much content in our world now. And when you find something that pierces through that and brings you a new idea or a new sound or a visual, oh man, is it exciting? That this is breakthrough. It may not be, some sort of huge scientific achievement, but it's still a breakthrough, and that just pumps me up.
All right. Last question. how do you define love? I love these giggles that Scotty has as we ask these questions, which I'm going to take those as these questions are worthy.
They are.
Well,
they are.
I think love is when you think more about someone else than you do yourself. I mean, there is an old saying that you need to love yourself first. And in that sense, there's some truth. It better be in a humble way, however. But I think when you love and care about someone else more than yourself, and in Christian terms, we talk about agape love, which really is not sexual love. That's a love that is more of goodwill, of benevolence, of faithfulness, of thinking of those kinds of things in people you care for. And so when I think of love, I think more of agape love.
I second that.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You got off too easy on that one.
Hey, you did too good. That's what that was.
Bruh. When your answer is poetry, I'm not going to go there. That's beautiful, and I can't. How can I disagree? It's lovely.
Okay. All right. Ready for the next segment? Next segment is called Word Association. This is where I say a word, and you just tell us what comes to your mind.
Oh boy.
All right. So we always here at the Kosh, we start off with our unifying word, the word that bonds us all, the word that brings us all together, and that word is food.
Which makes me think of sweets immediately. in limited fashion, but sweets.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
My brain, for whatever reason lately, has gone hot dog. I love hot dogs. Some people are like, no, thank you. That's great. Hot dogs. I could gobble them up any time of day.
Now, do you prefer them with skin on, or do you like the skinless?
I'm inclusive on this one, and I think it's all about the condiments. Some days do I go ketchup and mustard. Obviously, when I go to American Family Field and watch the Brewers, I got to have the secret stadium sauce. Although, by the way,
facts,
you can now buy that in the store,
bruh.
And I'm okay with that, but I'm also not okay with that, because the whole secret stadium, the secret emphasis on the secret is it's limited. Don't go the Krispy Kreme route, where suddenly there's Krispy Kremes everywhere, and guess what happened? Boom, So
I'm with you.
Have you had a hot dog at Leon's?
Yes, I have.
And Leon's, who everybody thinks of as custard, but I've always thought of them as the warm, soft bun that the hot dog came in. And back in the old days, they used to have you could get 4 or 5 hot dogs for $1 for $5 at times. And I remember we'd take a couple of kids out there, we could eat up 5 hot dogs real quick.
Yeah. How about when we have to say it, right? We're all thinking at Bob's Trail's End here in Oshkosh.
Oh, yeah.
Legendary.
Yeah.
So, the hot dog is, if ever like the Food Channel or something would come back to Oshkosh, how they could not stop there and examine this cultural icon, I don't know.
Yes.
That's
big shout out. Yeah. Big shout out to Bob's Trail's End. I love that you brought up hot dogs. And I feel like I influenced you, Scotty, by bringing up candy corn earlier.
Well, see, a hot dog to me my answer would be skin on. Because when I worked in the meat market, one of the favorite things we could do when a family would come in to be at the meat counter, the mom and dad would be ordering, we'd give a hot dog to the kids. And they'd just chew away on that hot dog, and they were happy as could be.
Nice. That's some tactics right there.
I'm going to go ahead and give the hot dog championship in my world to Costco. If you've never bought those Costco hot dogs, oh my God, why are they so good? They are fantastic.
People go there, to buy stuff, buy their groceries or what have you. But they're going there for that hot dog and a Coke or whatever the deal is.
Like, it's just good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree with that. All right. Okay. Cocktail or beer?
Well, for me, it makes me think of social friendships. I had a business friend one time who said, you don't have to have alcohol to have fun. But he said, I think back every time we were having fun, we seem to be having a beer. And there was something to that in the right fashion. And so I think of it as a social friendship sort of thing.
Yeah. I immediately go to Vodka Gimlet. Vodka Gimlet. So vodka, and for me, a little bit more of a splash of Rose's sweet lime juice with a couple of olives in it, as weird as that may sound to some of your listeners. My mom used to drink those, and especially this time of the year when we're heading into Thanksgiving and the holidays, it really takes me back to her, and she just really liked them, and so we'd make them for the holidays, and now my brother and I occasionally have one. As I advance in my years, I find them a little less tolerable, but boy, it's all about the nostalgia with that one for me.
I would like one. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I think the alcohol and the sweets fit together in a lot of ways, and both are good, both have fun, but both in moderation.
Absolutely.
And we've all been affected by people who've had difficulty with both. So I would put that caution to it.
Oh yeah, probably more people with sweets. There's difficulties there. Until you said it, I never thought of it that way. But no, that's totally a thing.
Yeah,
I might be one of them.
You haven't had a relationship with a cardiologist then.
I am trying not to. Shop local.
Kitz and Pfeil. We're in the click and order time of life. And when all that technology works, it works well and it's very convenient and appreciated. But when you really want some service or you have a question and you try to ask the question, then find someone when you're clicking, good luck. So I appreciate it when I can walk into a store like Kitz and Pfeil and there's immediately someone saying, how can I help you? And, let me help you find that. Or let me get the ladder and get that down for you.
Well, in Kitz and Pfeil, someone's going to have to help you find it. Because there's so much.
Little of that.
I mean, there's so much stuff, but it's all the stuff. You can't find that stuff just anywhere.
That's right.
Like when you can't find it, Kitz and Pfeil is my go-to.
Yep. Same here.
I'll default mode try to think of a reason to go there. When there's something I need and I maybe I disqualify it too soon in my mind, but I was like, well, wait a minute, no, they just might have it. And more often than not, I go and there it is. Somebody will take me right to the aisle or the section where it's beautifully tucked into the stuff.
Kitz and Pfeil is batting 100 with me. Like, and I mean, I'm the person that like I'm putting together. Everything's modular now, so you got to put stuff together, and that one screw is missing, or you snap something, you strip something, you do this and that, and I can go in there and take the piece with me and kind of the maybe if I'm lucky enough to have the screw or whatnot and be like, hey, and they'll go, oh yeah, and they lead you right there, pull the drawer out, and be like, give me 3 of those because I might break 2, and and then they make it happen. I cannot agree with you more about Kitz and Pfeil. Every experience I've ever had shopping in Kitz and Pfeil has been warm, friendly, and productive at the end of the day, where I go back home and that project gets to continue.
Yes.
That's invaluable.
You nailed it. Absolutely. When I think local, I think this time of year in particular, I love to shop, and we'll challenge ourselves to shop in downtowns. So central cities, we go to Oshkosh, we go to Ripon, we'll go to Neenah, Menasha, Appleton, all throughout our region. We're really blessed with some outstanding, distinctive, different cities. And so typically you can find amazing gifts and, things in these shops and stores. And it's fun. You feel like you're in a movie when you're walking down Main Street and you get your bags in hand and you pop into a shop and there's this like instant love and appreciation for shoppers. And so I don't know. I like that. I like that feeling.
Well, another one I would mention, we have a lot of friends in Menasha and Neenah and Appleton because of various relationships over the years. But, and we'll always tell them a destination at Oshkosh now is Caramel Crisp. If you're looking for any kind of a fun thing for children,
yes,
or obviously a place to get good caramel corn, it is really a unique gift shop, and it definitely should be a destination.
I agree.
They got good soup.
They do?
Yeah, they do. I'm going to just call that out now. It's good soup.
They have hot dogs there too, by the way, and they're not too bad.
Alex,
good.
you are now the hot dog connoisseur. You're the expert. I'm going to come holler at you.
What I love about this podcast is not only do you learn things, you discover things about yourself.
Facts. There's much truth about that. Okay. The next segment is called The Kosh Hidden Gems. This is your opportunity to share with us a hidden gem. It does not have to necessarily be in Oshkosh, but it could be in the surrounding Fox Cities area. It could be something everybody knows about, but maybe they don't know this one detail about it, or this one program about it, or maybe it's something a lot of people don't know about. So, in this time, let's go in reverse order, and we're going to start with you, Alex.
Hidden gems. Well, I'm going to bring forward a place that I love very dearly, and that's the Oshkosh Food Co-op. I think it's getting more known. So if anybody listening is going, "Oh, come on now," yeah, they're out there, they're known, but I do think there's a lot of people that have not yet had a chance to discover it or like challenged themselves to discover it. Open to everybody. You don't have to be a member. It's a grocery store. It's a grocery store right there on Jackson and Pearl, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Pearl.
about right. Yeah.
And you can get in there and get out of there with a full load of groceries that satisfy your weekly needs in about 20 minutes and still feel like it was enjoyable. So it's not just about the speed. You can still savor it, but it's speedy and full of great products. So that's my hidden gem. If you haven't tried it out, please do try it out.
Facts. I'm going to say, if you don't know about the sandwiches that be in that place.
Right.
They're amazing.
Yeah, lunch is like 5-second stop, boom, you got it. Good stuff.
All right, Scotty.
Well, I think of two. One was really hidden until about a half a dozen years ago, and that's Terrell's Island, and that's for those that are maybe new to Oshkosh. That's about a 3.5-4 mile walk on a level ground. For the most part, through the woods and then out over Lake Butamore. And just a beautiful setting and something that really, those of us who live here probably never even heard of that place 10 years ago. And now it's become definitely a go-to.
Yeah.
So that would be one. And the second hidden gem is at 1823 Doty Street. Okay, can either of you quickly tell me who's at 1823 Doty?
Wait, I know this address. I know I should totally know this address because I feel like I've recently...
Think chocolate.
Oh, yes. That is exactly
now,
why.
If you've never gone out to buy a gift of a chocolate and had to go down steep stairs into someone's basement and watch the chocolate being made while you're waiting to order, then you've missed the experience. So, and we've sent lots of people there just for the experience.
Hughes Chocolate.
Now, Oshkosh has another excellent chocolate spot in terms of Oaks candy.
It does.
But the experience to go along with the chocolate, you give it a try.
Good one.
Well, people that are really from Oshkosh, they're born and raised, like my wife, once again, they make you pick a team. You are either Team Oaks or Team Hughes. So, and both are fabulous.
Abundance theory,
Oh, yeah.
There's enough great stuff to go around. We don't need to sort this and pick one. You can enjoy them all.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that just goes down to family tradition.
Yes.
And we have so many gems that are not hidden. And I'm thinking about the Payne, the museum, it's just, and the Grand Theater. These are gems that are in Oshkosh that are very visible, advertised all the time, but not everybody takes the time to go there and walk the gardens or whatever. Or this time of year, be sure to see the Nutcracker.
Oh, boy.
It's hard to beat.
Facts. Okay. Our next segment is called Story Time, and this has become my favorite segment here on the Kosh. And what that is it's an opportunity for you to just share a story. It does not matter what it's about. We're just looking for a story. That's it. We're connecting through narrative.
Alex, do you want me to go first, or would you like your story?
I'll dive in and give you one. Like I said before earlier in the show, I was a newspaper reporter here for 10 years, and boy, a lot of stories that I was introduced to and helped kind of shape. I never considered myself the owner of that story at all. I was merely just the storyteller. And I can remember one in particular that it still is among my favorite stories for the newspaper I've ever written. And no, it had nothing to do with, government or investigative reporting or anything like that. I had heard about this woman named Dottie Adams, who was a resident at a local assisted living community. And she was coming up on 100. And amazing woman. And her family loved her dearly. And she, in her assisted living apartment, had a grand piano, like a baby grand piano.
Ooh.
And I thought, okay, interesting, and she, despite, aging and despite, facing a lot of these challenges of aging that we all do, like memory challenges and that sort of thing, still in her beautiful mind had a classical piano repertoire. So you could go to this community any given morning, and Dottie Adams at 9, 10 a.m. would be instantly banging out Rachmaninoff on this baby grand piano in this community, and this almost concert-like sound is booming through the halls. And so I went and talked to her and met her and did an interview with her, and just an amazing woman. You go into her room, there's this beautiful grand piano, kind of out of place in what you typically imagine an assisted living apartment.
Right.
And she said, "What shall I play for you?" And I said, "Oh, you decide. I'm just curious." And she goes, "Well, let me do Rachmaninoff." And so I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be really cute. This is going to be kind of a lovely thing. Boom! I mean, you are instantly in a concert hall. And the music is ringing, and I think my jaw dropped. My photographer, who's with me at the time, jumps up on a chair and starts snapping pictures of this, virtuoso piano player. She's got beautiful. Her hands are, aging and wrinkled. She's got beautiful, like just solid red nail polish on, and I can hear some of the clicking of her fingernails on. I still remember these things, and what an honor for me to be able to tell that kind of story and capture it for others. I saw Dottie after writing that story in the community at the Grand Opera House one time for an event. This is years ago. She's since passed. But her son, a good colleague and friend, said, "Hey, Alex, it's my mom's here tonight. Would you like to see her?" I'm like, "Oh, of course I'd like to see her." Brings her over, and I kind of wondered, is she going to remember me? Is it? I'm just there to kind of cover the story. She sees me, and her face just kind of warms, and she looks at me, and it's the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life. She says, "That story you wrote flowed like water." And my heart just burst out of my chest because I knew I'd done her justice, And what an amazing person. There are humans like that everywhere, and many of them right here in Oshkosh.
That's a wonderful story, and I too know Sam and Betty Adams.
Yeah.
And I actually went to Dottie's funeral, which lasted for several hours because there was so much to tell.
I bet. I bet.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, my story, I think back of when we moved back to Oshkosh in '63, the big news was they're going to get this $3 million place called the Pioneer Inn, and we're going to be a resort community. So those were the early days of the Pioneer was built and finished. And I'm a boater, and that was my hobby over the years. So that appealed to me. Especially the marina side of it. And at the same time, we were very much involved in the leadership of the Miss Wisconsin pageant, which was very popular. And a lot of that, it was held at the Pioneer, and a lot of the social events and so forth. So the timing was perfect for that to come to Oshkosh. And we had not yet had children, and so we had plenty of time to devote to those sort of things. And so for the next half dozen years, we became good friends with Jürgen Moritz, who was the manager of the Pioneer, and lots of social events and fun. And from a boating standpoint, the marina. And it became a regular community. Lots of out-of-town Chicago, Milwaukee people coming up because they didn't quite want to have to drive any further north, but they could still find a good place to put their boat. And so it became a boating community and for all of us in the Oshkosh area. And then, not to mention the Tiki Bar, which was out on the Pioneer lawn. So that became a lot of social fun in our early young days in Oshkosh. And interestingly, I noticed this summer, all of a sudden the marina has stayed. The marina is still there. The Pioneer is torn down, long gone. But somehow or other, they resurfaced and popped open the Tiki Bar late in the summer, advertising it only on social media, and the parking lot was jammed. So showing the power of social media. So I look forward to, again, the next generation, when the Pioneer becomes alive again, and it will. There will be someone that will step in there and see that gets done. So that's kind of my story of fun days in our early days in Oshkosh.
Okay. Thank you both very much. And at this time, we're going to take a small commercial break.
Did you know there are children in the Fox Valley in need of hearing aids, but their parents struggle to provide them because of lack of insurance or high copays? I am Juliette Sturkins, audiologist and board member of Here in the Fox Cities, and proud that this small local nonprofit organization has helped fund hearing aids for some 30 kids. Your donation would help more children hear. Visit hereinthefoxcities.org to learn more and to see their smiles. Every child deserves to hear.
Okay, Kosh listeners, we are back, and I think you know what time it is. Every single time it makes me happy. Can't tell you why, but it totally makes me happy. All right, it is time for Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week is chosen by our guests 99.9% of the time, and this week is no different. So, Scotty and Alex, what is our topic of the week?
Well, my topic of the week would be opportunity, and the opportunities I see around Oshkosh at the moment. From an educational standpoint, we have some beautiful new schools opening. We have more in the mill that'll be opening in a year or two. I see the university with the opportunity. Who I was pleased to see is number 3. I know you have a background, Alex, of growing up in the Eau Claire area, but fortunately they're number 4. So Oshkosh is number 3 again. And there's just wonderful opportunities for higher education and education of all of our youth in town. And so I see that. And from the business standpoint, I mentioned earlier, just watching the corridors on Oshkosh Avenue and Highway 41 and all the new pop-ups that are occurring and the new hotels. And it's just wonderful opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna second all that because especially Scotty, hearing it from you, you have such an amazing lens on the history of the community and its growth and change and everything. So I'm glad you're optimistic. I'm glad you see opportunity because that's key. And I think it's exciting. I do think, the school system, I think, is becoming even more aggressive about how they think about building school communities, bringing on new leadership, and being responsive to the community. Every large organization, especially public large organizations that need to respond to their publics, it's a challenge. But I like the things I'm seeing too. And I think, if we can make ourselves a community that's known for educational opportunities, take your pick, what kind you want, that's a good thing. I think that bodes well for the future of Oshkosh.
I would agree. There's definitely lots of change, and I do like the change. I like the thoughtfulness that has been going on as we become who we're becoming. And I like what I would call a melting of old stagnant culture to maybe finally start to realize who we can't help but to become.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Love it. Well said. I would add this, if I could too, if you don't mind. One thing, I'll do my one bit here on the university, again, where I work, that really is powerful, and that is the number of alumni who graduate from our university. Our university belongs to all of us, and remain in not only Wisconsin, but typically in this region is strong. It's about 90% of the students who hail from Wisconsin, graduate from UWO, stick around. And those who are not from Wisconsin, the numbers have been as high as about 45, going toward 50% in the last several years. That's good. You want that talent. You want to keep that. You want to keep that knowledge and that skill that you developed right here in your backyard. So that's a good thing too, I think, for the growth and prosperity of our region.
I think that's the hope, right? That's always the hope. I don't know if the college student always feels the same. But the planning, the region would love it if that was always the case. If we make this talent, we need this talent. Right. To keep it around here would be fabulous. And the one thing I will say is this: you really don't know how many Titans there are until you really have that conversation. It's not something that the typical Titan leads with. But sooner or later, somewhere after point 2 or 3, it comes in there and you're like, oh yeah, I got my graduate degree at UW Oshkosh. I went there for this. I went there for that. I think there's even more power in that graduate degree. Those who maybe didn't start with UWO but decided to live in this region and stay in this region, and therefore took the next step and then got their graduate degrees from here. I have these conversations all the time. Mm-hmm. And you know what I really like about Fighting Titans? They don't look a certain way. They don't sound a certain way. They are just here, helpful, immersed Titans.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Throw a couple of quick Titan stories. When I was serving on the UW Foundation board, another board member was Craig Culver, and Craig and I we'd been on the board about the same time, and Chancellor Wells, it was time for him to find a new leader or president of the board. So he came to Craig, and I always remember Craig saying, I think that's a good time for Scotty to do that. I'll just be your poster boy. Yeah, I got a kick out of Craig because that's one of the roles he truly loves, is being the marketing guy for Culver's. And he's always been a good friend because of that board.
He's been a great friend, too, to UW Oshkosh. Having somebody of his prominence and entrepreneurial success and family success and business success. And I think he was a biology grad, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's correct.
So he's got he's another great example of how, you can leverage your degree and it can take you to places that maybe you can't even predict. But the good thing is you've got it in your pocket and you can use it and leverage it going forward.
Well, it's often said the most valuable thing you can give is your time. And Craig's a perfect example because he writes the checks, but more importantly, he takes the time to come on campus, meet with students, and provide that kind of an example in person.
He does.
That's anyway, the other one I'm thinking of the same way as Jim Keller up at Keller Foundation. Mm-hmm. Jim is he's just full of energy, and he's been a good friend for many, many, many years. And Jim, he so proudly can tell you right to the number how many UWO graduates they have on staff, and it's always in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And, it's such an important feeder to the future leadership of our area.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe a conversation that we don't have enough. Just the impact that we have it here on the Kosh all the time.
Right.
Because we always have Titans on here all the time. And I know another Titan that might actually host this show. But, we have this conversation all the time. And sometimes I don't know if the greater community truly understands all the impact that having this third largest university in our midst right here in our backyard, what it really does to the rest of the community. Yeah. Sometimes I think it's just taken for granted. It's that place in the center of the city that sometimes we won't even drive through because if we're local, we don't want to get stopped by all the students, right? But what does that really mean, and what does that mean for all the programming initiatives, the talent that is brought? There's so much interconnectedness when it comes to community and community success and planning that centers around education. When businesses look for places that they're going to bring their business to, one of the first things they look at is like ratings of a school district. What is that school district? Because if you're going to bring talent, what does talent look at first? Well, it's one of the first things. If your talent is family aged, they want the best school districts for their kids. Right. They want opportunities for their families. There's so many things that go into the bigger equation of making this wonderful, connected community, this inclusive community that come into play that I don't think we're having, that we always don't have the full conversation about and appreciate the resources that we actually have right here in our backyard that are pretty doggone good.
Can you push the applause button for yourself there? Just do it.
I can do that.
I'm not in control, but I just thought you deserved that one.
All right. Well, that's how I really feel.
Thank you.
Any other things we would like to add at this point? Was there anything that you didn't say about your topic of the week at this point that you would like to share with the Kosh listeners?
I'm good.
I am too. I think we've covered it well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, then it is our time. We're going to start wrapping up this episode. Just want to say, Kosh listeners, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for caring enough to be part of this conversation and listen to what our great guests have to say and share about our community. We have something pretty special here at the Kosh, and we're glad that you're participating with us, and that's what makes it even more special. Once again, we are a work in progress. Please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know how we can be better. Also, if you'd like to be a guest or if you'd like to recommend a guest, reach out to us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. Also, the way to help us, I've got an ask. Help us help others. And what that means is help us raise our analytics so more people can find out about the Kosh podcast. Once again, we got something pretty special. And how do you do that? Hit the subscribe button as you're listening to the Kosh. Hit the subscribe button to the Kosh, and also take the time and fill out a review. It doesn't have to be a lot, good, bad, or indifferent, but all of that helps raise our analytics, and it puts the Kosh in front of more eyes out here. And once again, we've got something pretty special here. My last thing for you Kosh listeners is it's the holiday season, and I need to hear from you if you think you might be interested in the Kosh t-shirts. Now look, I've rolled out a new logo and I put it out there on social media, and I hope some of you got to see it, but I'm thinking I'm going to roll out a new t-shirt. So if there's interest, because nothing says local like the Kosh t-shirt. I promise you that. True. And it is quite the conversation piece. The other thing I'll tell you is people who have worn them or do wear them, someone's going to walk up to you and ask you what's the Kosh, and it turns into a very interesting conversation. I promise. So if there's any interest out there, please let me know ASAP so I can get to working on making that happen. Okay. Now, on to what is probably the most important part of the show. I don't know, maybe I'm a little biased, but you already know. It is shout out time. All right. So, all right, Scotty, let's go.
Well, I'd echo a shout out that you gave early when you started, when you shouted out this Veterans Day weekend to thank veterans. And I'm thinking of those who obviously did not come back, but just as importantly to those who came back and are still suffering with their wounds, physical and mental. And I think we need to remember and give our thanks to them. From a civility standpoint, my shout-outs have to go to Tom Grogan, Sue Ponick, and Margie Davey, who've really stepped forward to help assure that as I've stepped back, that the leadership of the program continues, and they've certainly done that, and that's to be appreciated. My other shout-out would be to Marlon Greenfield, a fellow grocer who became far more successful as a grocer than I ever did, retiring as a chief officer of Festival Foods. And Marlon and I have worked together in the excellence of leadership process for a number of years. And anyway, a great mentor and friend. And last of all, a shout out to Franki Mascato. And it's so wonderful to see a young person who's doing what she's doing and the effect she's having and how she's matured and now wants to really help teens prevent the teen suicide that concerns all parents. So anyway, those are my shout outs. Thank you.
Hey, I'm just going to put this out there. Franki, if you ever want to come on the Kosh, the door is open.
Love it. I'll give my shout outs a little bit more generic, so please forgive me, but the spirits no less. I want to give a shout out to all public servants, and I mean people serving in our local governments and our school districts and higher education and corrections and public health. They work hard. They're looking out for us. They're making sure our communities are safe and well educated. And I just, being the product of two of those people, my mom and dad as public school teachers, and they were about 35 years apiece in the same middle school in rural Wisconsin. I grew up with a deep, deep love for people who choose to raise their hand and serve in the public sector. So I give them all a grand shout out and say thank you.
Facts.
Thank
you. Okay. Let me go here. I got some shout outs, and for my first shout out, it's going to go to Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, Paris and Kristen. Yesterday, I got to be a wedding officiant. So I married some people, and it was it's my first time, and it was a pretty cool experience. So I'm honored that they asked me and allowed me to be part of their special day, and to do the things to get them across that across that line. So it was pretty special and it was pretty amazing. So I want to give a special shout out to them. Congratulations. I want to give a shout out to my man Josh, the franchise. He's someone, he goes way back in my history. Somebody I've become really, I used to be really, really close to. I don't get to talk to him as much now, but he still holds a special place with me. And he was the first person to send me a Happy Veterans Day message yesterday, and that meant a lot. So I appreciate that. Want to send a shout out to all of the Kosh's alum. You know, we've been at this for a while now. We're over 100 episodes. We've had a lot of amazing people. There's amazing connections that have happened and programming and initiatives, and it's just amazing what this little podcast has been able to do in this very special place called the Kosh. And I just want to say thank you for everyone who gives their time to be in this super long form podcast that we're very, very proud of. Thank you. Send a shout out to the Herd for their first game of this week. Excited. Let's make that happen.
Bruh.
All right. Special shout out to Olivia at NBC 26. I got covered for my other podcast, Appleton Engaged, and you did a fantastic job framing that. And when the media gets it right, someone should tell the media they got it right. And I think that's super important. Shout out to Greta Lax for hosting a panel on what it means to be a veteran-friendly workplace. I got to be part of that. It was fantastic. Well done to all the panelists on it. Amazing. Just amazing. And another shout-out to Sandy Drexler of Tri-County Dental. just doing amazing things, serving people in a space where, you know, I don't know about you, but if you've ever had dental problems or dental pain, there's nothing worse. That is literally the worst pain in the world. So to have a resource in our region that covers when you don't have that insurance or you don't have the money is fantastic. And I don't think enough of us know about this amazing resource. But we're going to work on getting them on here. And finally, to echo what Scotty said, thank you, thank you, thank you to all our veterans. Yep. All right. So there's one last thing to do before we close out this episode, and that is this. You have some choices. There are 3. And those choices are, you can each give us some parting words of wisdom. You can tell us, what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self? Or option C, because I love a good multiple choice, is both, all of the above. So, because we've kind of had an order to this the whole time, but I think I want to end with wisdom. We're going to start with Alex, and then Scotty, we're going to have you finish us out. All right.
Totally endorse that move. I think mine are both C, option C for me. And this is something that I heard the civility movement leader, really, with his book, Choosing Civility, Dr. Forney, who Scotty mentioned earlier, say to me, because I got to interview him when he came to Oshkosh back in 2011. And it stuck with me, and I will never forget it. And it guides me in how I want to be and how I interact with others who really do impress me. And what he said was this: there are 2 indefatigable qualities, aka unassailable, best qualities ever, especially when they're combined in humans. And those qualities are smart and nice. And when those 2 things come into play, human beings really help go places that you never could imagine, and they bring people with them. So smart and nice. Don't forget those.
Well said. I think I would also take option 3, but my answer would be the same for A and B. And that we touched on earlier, the importance of being able to give time. It's always good to write a check, but giving time is your most valuable asset. And so I would encourage us all to, if I look back to my 13-year-old self along the way, I'd say take more time to be kind, to be helpful people. And in this later age, take time to reach out and take time to make a phone call, send an email, be a word of encouragement to someone who's coming along. So those would be my thoughts.
Amazing. Just an amazing episode. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. You already know, the Kosh.